Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing all of the fantasy romance books I want to read before the end of the year. Alright guys, so we are very quickly approaching the end of 2024. Honestly, I'm okay with it. 2024 has not been my year at all. But that being said, there are so many fantasy romance books I really want to get to before 2025. So the way I kind of formatted this video is we're going to start off with the fantasy romance books that haven't released yet, but will be releasing before the end of the year. Then we're going to move into the fantasy romance books that have released. I just haven't had a chance to pick them up yet and would really like to read them before 2025. And then I'm going to end it with series that I'm just in the middle of that I need to either finish or at least catch up to before the end of the year. So I am very excited to talk about these books with you guys. This is my favorite genre, so these are some of my favorite videos to film. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Goodreads, Patreon, and Instagram, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these fantasy romance books. So starting off with fantasy romance books that have yet to be released, first up we have the Songbird and the Heart of Stone, and this is the third book in the Crown of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. Now, I do believe this is following different characters than the original duology. So this is following a character named Nisha, who after being turned into a vampire, she ends up getting revenge by killing the prince who turned her. Now, because of this, she's actually sentenced to death, but is saved by Asar, who is the prince of, I believe, like the Shadow Court or the Shadow God. And anyway, together they end up embarking on this quest to find the god of death and resurrect him, and the story goes from there. Now, I've pretty much loved every single book I've read by Carissa Broadbent. However, and unfortunately, I have not finished the original Serpent and the Wings of Night duology. I still have not read Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So as soon as I do that, I will 100% be picking up the Songbird and the Heart of Stone. I know I'm going to absolutely love it. So that is a book I am so excited to pick up when it releases. And next up is one of my most anticipated releases on this list. It is Under the Oak Tree, and this is actually a bind-up of a webtoon that I was completely obsessed with, and I am so excited it's getting adapted into a full-length novel. So this story is following this girl that is the daughter of a duke. She's very much the forgotten daughter. Everyone kind of like doesn't pay her much mind. But anyway, she's very surprised when she ends up being in an arranged marriage with her father's general. And he's actually like a lesser general. No one knows very much about him. So anyway, their wedding night is very, very rocky. And then he ends up getting sent off to war for 3 years. Now, while he is gone, he ends up actually becoming a war hero. And our main character here is that he's getting marriage offers left and right. So when he returns, she is obviously very nervous. And it's really just following their relationship. And I loved it. So I am so excited for this book to come out. I believe this is covering chapters 1 through 76 in the webtoon. So it's going to be so, so good. So like I said, that is releasing on November 6th. And there is an audiobook to accompany it. And next up is North is the Night, and this is releasing in December. Honestly, this story just sounds so unique. We are following these two sisters that are living in the Finnish wilderness. So it is Aina and Siri. Aina ends up being captured by this death goddess and taken to the underworld, where she's tormented by a witch queen and then starts to find out that the king of the underworld is scheming and wants to use Aina for his own gains. Now, while all this is going on, Siri is trying to save her sister and ends up partnering with a shaman for help. And I think we're going to be following their journey of trying to save the other sister. So it sounds really good, and I am so excited for it to release in December. And next up is A Tribute of Fire. This is releasing on November 1st, and this story is following Leah. So Leah is the princess of a nation known as Lorcas, and unfortunately, every year, 2 maidens from this nation are sent off to compete and try to survive this labyrinth that they have to race through. Now, unfortunately, no maiden has ever survived, and this is very sad for Leah because she is the one who is chosen to go along with her younger sister. So as Leah tries to survive this very dangerous competition, she is drawn to Jason, who is a sailor from another nation, and I think they end up kind of partnering up throughout this labyrinth, and this story goes from there. So it sounds really good. It sounds like it's going to be filled with action, so I will definitely be picking this book up in November. And moving into fantasy romances that have released, I just haven't had a chance to pick them up yet. First up, we have The Wraith King by Juliette Cross. So this story is following Una, who is a princess who agrees to an arranged marriage to the Wraith King in order to save her people from this brutal war, and the story goes from there. This book is absolutely stunning. It is one of the prettiest books I own, and I am so excited to get to this. Now, I am waiting for the audiobook, which is why I haven't picked this book up yet, but I do know there is one in production, so hopefully it releases before the end of the year. And next up is Nectar of the Wicked, and this is by one of my favorite authors of all time, Ella Fields. So in this story, we are following a changeling who has been questioning who she is and where she comes from her entire life. And everything changes when she meets this very seductive and charming fairy who ends up setting his eyes on her and offers her a deal. He will help her discover who she comes from, who she really is, in exchange for marriage. And the story goes from there. So I actually will be picking this up in November. This was one of the options for my Patreon book club pick, and I do have the book they picked on this list, but this was a very close runner-up, and I am very excited to get to this. So the audiobook for this did recently release, so I will be picking this up very early in November. And that brings us to my actual Patreon book club pick for November. It is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Now, I haven't officially announced this yet on Patreon. However, this book won by a landslide, and I know I have been waiting to read this book 4 months since it first released. The audiobook is dropping at the end of October, so April from Happily Ever April, if you are watching this, I'm finally going to read this book. Be prepared for all of the voice memos. I cannot wait. Honestly, I have not looked too in-depth to what this book is about because I don't want to be spoiled for myself. All I know about this is we are following this girl who I believe is a thief, and she ends up opening a portal to another realm, and when she gets into this realm, it is very icy and is filled with fae and nightmare monsters, apparently, and she ends up becoming bonded with a fae named Kingfisher who wants to use her for his own personal gains. And it goes from there. I cannot wait. I've heard the banter in this is so, so good. I'm a little worried because it is super chunky, but this is going to be a 5-star. I know it's going to be a 5-star. So as soon as the audiobook drops, I will be reading this book. And next up is Heart of Night and Fire. I've heard amazing things about this slow burn fantasy romance. We are following Sariah, and she is a young woman that has been raised in captivity and forbidden from using her magic. Now, when she's able to escape, she finds out that the kingdom she is in is being inhabited by demons every single night. So while she is trying to uncover secrets about her magic and why this is happening, she ends up having a bit of a interaction with this blood-drinking commander, and then a romance, I think, starts to blossom despite the fact that she's trying to stay away from him. And the story goes from there. So this was so kindly sent to me from Amanda, from Amanda's Booktopia. I didn't get a chance to thank her in my book haul video, so thank you so much, Amanda. I know she, along with Clint from Reed's Readers, will be reading this book for their November live show, so highly recommend checking out both their channels, but I will definitely be reading this book in November. And next up is Slaying the Shadow Prince. So the story, we are following Drew, who is a noble woman who is turned into a ranger, and this is because her family was killed by wraiths. So she wants to get revenge on wraiths. Now she ends up teaming up with this decorated general that she does not realize is actually half wraith. And they end up having to work together to try to hunt down his kind, and the story goes from there. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. Unfortunately, I haven't picked it up yet, and that is because I am reading the Legend of Thesmar series with my patrons. We are doing a read-along from October until I think it ends in January or February, and we're reading one book a month. Now, apparently this book is like a tie-in to that series, so I didn't want to pick it up and spoil anything for myself, so I will be reading it in, I believe, December, but I am so excited. If you have read it, let me know in the comments what you rated it. I really hope it is a 5-star. And next up is City of Gods and Monsters. Now, this book actually released a while back. However, there was no audiobook available, but an audiobook is dropping in November, so I'm hoping to pick this book up soon. So in this story, we are following Lauren, and she is an ordinary human girl that is living in this supernatural city that is ruled by monsters and other paranormal creatures. Now, our main character's life takes a drastic turn when she narrowly avoids abduction by a dark slayer. Unfortunately, her friend is kidnapped. So Lauren decides that she is going to approach the leader of the Dark Slaying Circle in order to try to convince him to help her get her friend back. and the story goes from there. Now, I do believe this is urban fantasy, and typically I don't gravitate towards urban fantasy, but I've read a few really good ones, so I really want to give this a try. And like I said before, I've seen nothing but really, really, really good reviews for this series, so I am so excited for that audiobook to drop. And next up is Until the Stars Fall. I have had this fantasy romance on so many TBRs. I'm really hoping to get to it before the end of 2024. So this story is following a human girl that is working in a fey court, trying to keep her head down and just to not be the center of attention. Well, all that changes when she accidentally kills a fey noble and is sentenced to death. But she ends up being saved by a fey prince who actually detests her, but offers her this arrangement. If she will pretend to be his bride-to-be, then he will spare her life. And the story goes from there. So I haven't read a ton of fantasy romances that have fake dating, so I'm very intrigued, and hopefully I will be getting to this soon. And last up, before we jump into the fantasy romance series, we have The Crown of Oaths and Curses by J. Bree. I have talked about this book in so many videos, I didn't even have to look up the Goodreads synopsis. All I know about this is we are following a witch and a witch hunter. It is enemies to lovers, true enemies to lovers. Apparently the romance is the slowest of slow burns. I have been waiting for this audiobook for what feels like ever. And at one point it seemed like there was one in production and they had a release date. I just went searching, I cannot find a release date anywhere. So if anyone knows if this book is going to drop via audio, please let me know down in the comments below. I am absolutely desperate. I really want to read this book, and I need the audio. So please, if anyone has any idea, let me know down below. I'm moving into fantasy romance series that I either need to catch up or finish before the end of 2024. First up, we have the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roerich. The third book, A Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, is releasing on October 31st. I was so lucky I was able to get an advanced reader copy, and I lost my ever-loving mind. So I am 2 chapters in. I will definitely have it finished by release day, and I love this series so much. So if you're unfamiliar with the Legacy series, the first book is Reign of Shadows and Endings. It is so unbelievably good. I will say it is dark fantasy romance. It will not be for everybody. It does play a lot with the captor-captive trope, so definitely check trigger warnings. I love this series so much. So the story is essentially following, well, Tessa, but we're in this world where the gods created the Legacy, and the Legacy are like the children of the gods, and in the world these gods created, the Legacy controlled the Fae. Tessa, our main character, is a Fae, so she grew up knowing that one day she would have to serve one of the 6 Legacy houses. So when she comes of age, she ends up being selected to be the primal source of the Heir of Endings. Now, Tessa was not expecting to be bestowed such an honor, and does not want this position, because if you are a primary source, you are forced to get these bonding marks that allow the person you are bonded to be able to sense when you're near, hear your thoughts, also become physically attracted to you, and it's a very intimate, like, bonding ceremony. So anyway, although Tessa does not want to be any part of this, she ends up being forced, and it's really her story of dealing with being bonded to this stranger who wants to use her for his own means, and it goes from there. There's so much action. I love the romance. I love everything about this series, so highly, highly recommend, and I cannot wait just to finish book 3 and to see where Melissa K. Roerich takes this, because it is so good. I just love these characters. And next up is Heat of the Everflame. This is the 3rd book in the Kindred's Curse saga. So I absolutely loved book 1 and 2. However, I haven't picked up book 3. 1, because it is so unbelievably chunky, and 2, because I know that there are more books releasing in this series, so I kind of want to read them back to back instead of having to wait and do a reread. I used to be able just to reread books when the new one released. Unfortunately, I just don't have that kind of time anymore, so I am waiting to pick this up. However, I am so excited. I love the characters in this. If you're unfamiliar with the Kindred's Curse saga, we are following Diem, and she lives in this world where there are the Descended, who are descended from gods that are really like the ruling class and live almost in like a bordered off area. And then there's the humans. So Diem's mother is a healer, and she actually is able to go into the Descendeds realm in order to like help them and heal them. And then there is Diem and Diem's friends, one of them being this guy that she's very close with, kind of like her boyfriend, who is part of a rebel group that wants to take down the Descended. And when Diem's mother ends up going missing, Diem has to decide who she wants to align with. and the story goes from there. I know I've said this in other videos, the romance in this is the slowest of slow burns, but that is part of the reason why I love this series so much. I love when it takes forever, even multiple books, for the main female main character and male main character to finally get together, whoever the love interests are. I just don't love when it's instantaneous and it happens really early in the first book. I love it being drawn out. So overall, I cannot wait. I know this is going to be a 5-star. And next up are books 5 and 6 from the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy, so Gold and Goldfinch. I absolutely loved the first 4 books in that series. I did DNF the first book about 4 times. I have a reading vlog that is completely spoiler-free that I'll leave in the cards and the description. But once I got past that first book, I love the series. I love the main character's growth throughout the series. If you're unfamiliar with The Plated Prisoner, it is kind of like a very loose King Midas reimagining. We are following RN, and she is the gilded pet of Midas. Midas having the power to turn everything he touches into gold. So he has gold-touched RN and keeps her in the middle of his castle as just something nice to look at. And really, RN has absolutely no autonomy. All she cares about is being safe, drinking, and really just Midas and being subservient to Midas. And all of that changes when Midas, along with RN, have to leave the kingdom and go to another kingdom, and RN ends up being kidnapped, and it goes from there. But once again, another series that has such an amazing slow burn romance that I was completely addicted to, and really one of my favorite FMCs just because of how when she starts in that first book, I really could not stand her, and just the level of growth and how much she changes and comes into herself throughout the series is so beautiful and just amazing. So highly recommend, if you have not read the Plated Prisoner series, definitely check it out. And next up is Silver Wings and Golden Games, which is the sequel to The God-Kissed Bride by Evie Marcoux. I absolutely loved The God-Kissed Bride. However, I will definitely have to do a reread before I pick up the sequel, which is why I have not picked it up yet. I know a lot of my subscribers, along with friends, have messaged me and told me they like book 2 even more than book 1, and I loved book 1, so I know I'm gonna love this. Now, what I remember from book 1, I think it was like a Lady Godiva reimagining, but we're following this girl that was God blessed, I believe is the term they use, or something along those lines, where she has this birthmark that designates her for having certain powers. So she has the power to talk to animals. Now, her father ends up dropping her off in this very abusive coven where she lives until a man or a royal comes and decides he would like her to be his bride. So the only stipulation he asks is that she travel completely naked for like 20 days or so, with only the company of a guard he has selected to his castle, which is very dangerous and just not hygienic and horrible in every way. And the story goes from there. So it is like a traveling romance and bodyguard romance, and I really, really loved it. So I know I'm gonna love the sequel. I just forget a lot of those little details. So as soon as I do my reread, I will be picking it up. And next up is the final book in the Zodiac Academy. Now, I loved the first 4 or 5 books in the Zodiac Academy. They were some of my favorite books of all time. I actually have a spoiler-free series review of, I think, up until book 6, and I will leave that in the cards and the description. I loved the series. However, it has become so drawn out. The books are just too long, and I feel like we are just going through too many arcs that are really unnecessary. And the ending of the last book I read really left a lot unanswered, and I'm not sure how we're gonna sum all of that up in one book. And I am so nervous, but also I have come this far that I really, really want to finish the series because I've spent so much of my life reading that series. So I'm gonna read that final book. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, and every time I go to start it, I'm like, I could be reading something else. So it might take me a while, it might take right up until the end of 2024, but I will read it. If you have read it, I only know like 2 people that have. Let me know, what did you rate it? Was it worth it? I'm really hoping for an amazing conclusion that'll make those last 2 books worth it. I don't know if that's gonna happen, and I don't mean this to put anyone off of Zodiac Academy. I realize that was so negative what I just said. I do love that series. There are romances in that series, and some of the characters are my favorite characters of all time. I definitely think it's worth picking up. It's just, it is so, so drawn out. So that is another book I will hopefully be reading by the end of the year. And last up is A Fire in the Flesh by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is one of the books in the prequel series to From Blood and Ash. Now, I don't think this is the most recent release, but it is where I'm at in this series. Now, I've picked this book up 4 times and put it down 4 times. For some reason, I just cannot get invested in this story. However, I really want to finish it. From Blood and Ash is so close to my heart. I know this is the prequel series or companion series, not the main one, but they really do tie in together. And the first video I ever made on YouTube was a From Blood and Ash deep dive. So I love this series. I love these characters. I do think the story should end pretty soon. I feel like it is really, really drawn out, similar to Zodiac Academy. But overall, I love the romance and I want to see how it ends. So I will finish this book by 2025. I am determined. Please, guys, hold me accountable. Leave some comments. Make sure I finish this book because I really, really need to. But if you have read this, let me know down in the comments below. What did you rate it? I'm so curious to where this series is going. Alright guys, those are most of the books on my fantasy romance TBR. I am sure as soon as I am editing this video, I will think of more books that I want to read before the end of 2024. Please let me know down in the comments below, what book are you most looking forward to reading before the end of the year? And I'd like to say a special thank you to my Paladin Protectors, Amanda, Erin, Leslie, Kat, and Lotta. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.